Good morning, everyone. Please come on in and have a seat. We've got plenty of room up here, lots of room in the front as always. On behalf of the Navigators, welcome to the Lieutenant Jim Downing Bridge dedication ceremony. The Navigators have been blessed to be a part of this community since 1953 and are happy to sponsor this event today. My name is Gary Cantwell. I'm the Chief Communications Officer of the Navigators, and it's my distinct privilege to work with Jim Downing at 104 years old. Today, I'm honored to introduce our MC, Sally Clark. Sally has a long history of public service in our community. She served on the Colorado Springs City Council and served for 12 years as an El Paso County Commissioner. Sally is a former president of the National Association of Counties, the only Colorado commissioner ever elected to this post. Sally is happy to be here today, especially due to her long involvement in this project. She served on the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority and the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments and was a key team member in securing the successful support of the I-25 Cimarron project that was fully funded through collaborative efforts with local, state, and federal partners. Sally served on the Executive Oversight Committee for the I-25 Cimarron project, which participated in project goals development, the process to identify a design-build contractor team, and provided input regarding the maintenance of traffic to help minimize inconvenience to the community throughout construction. According to Colorado State Representative Pete Lee, Sally Clark is clearly one of the hardest working public servants in El Paso County. She digs in, she's completely energized, and that's important. Ladies and gentlemen, Sally Clark.
Thank you very much, Gary. I'm just very happy to be here this morning, and we're thankful that the sun is shining and it's warming up out here. And I wanted to recognize those who are VIPs in our audience today. And I think we've gotten everyone, but we'll ask those who haven't been recognized to also raise their hands. But obviously we have our special guest, Jim Downing, who we're here to celebrate today. We have the Downing family, Representative Dan Nordberg, Representative Tony Exum, Senator Mike Merrifield, Commissioner Stan Vanderwerf, as well as Andy Pico and Bill Murray, I think, here from the City Council. We have former State Senator Bernie Herpin, and any electeds that perhaps I missed, could you please just raise your hands? Oh, I'm sorry, Norm Steen, our Teller County Commissioner. Thank you so much for being here today. I would also like us to take a moment and ask for anyone who has served in any branch of the armed forces to please stand, and let's give them a round of applause. Thank you for your service. Now we're going to start with the Colorado Springs Conservatory, and I'm also going to mention, I forgot Dave Watt. Where are you, Dave? Here's our project manager for CDOT. Thank you for being here this morning. The Colorado Springs Conservatory, located just one block east from here, has a mission to inspire, motivate, and challenge our youth to aspire to their highest potential as artists and as human beings through arts immersion studies and community arts advocacy. Please all now stand for the playing of the national anthem by Ian Ferguson from the Colorado Springs Conservatory. Thank you so much, Anne. You know, you may be seated. Thank you. I just wanted to say just a few words and then we'll get to our speakers. But I've known Jim Downing for many years. I think we first met, my birthday happens to be December 7th. And Jim obviously is a Pearl Harbor survivor. My mother's birthday was also December 7th. And so anytime we had a proclamation come before the Board of County Commissioners, I would carry it in terms of the Pearl Harbor remembrances that would happen at Memorial Park. And Jim has just become a part of my life with his dedication to not only serving as one of those who have put their lives on the line for us, but also with his passion, his faith, his family, and trying to carry the messages forward of the importance of service and public service. I also have had the opportunity with a number of ladies here today to dance with Jim at the Navy Ball. What you may not know is I'm a Navy wife. My husband is on the USS Colorado Commissioning Committee, and we're really outnumbered here in the Pikes Peak region. So this is very special for us to be able to be recognized with those Navy folks here in the Pikes Peak area, to have some standing among all of our compatriots with Navy and Air Force and Army and those other folks that serve here in our community. So thank you all for your service, whatever branch you've served in. So we're here today to honor Jim in this community with the renaming of the Cimarron Bridge to the Lieutenant Jim James Downing Bridge. And as we look behind us at our mountain, Pikes Peak, and realize the words of America the Beautiful, of Patriot Streams, we think of people like Jim who have continued to carry the message of the importance of service and the sacrifices that have been made. Today, those of you who are sitting in the audience, there are 104 chairs seated here today. That's basically to signify the importance that Jim is 104 years young. And I looked at the resolution, and I just wanted to read a couple of whereases so that you'll get an idea, and I'm sure that others behind me will be sharing their passion for why they thought this was important. Lieutenant Downing has provided invaluable historical information through recounting of his experience at Pearl Harbor, sharing his stories through public speaking, helping to develop interactive educational materials, and publishing a book of his personal account of the attack. And whereas it is fitting that we honor the life and valor of a man devoted to his family, his country, and his God, who bore witness to one of the most important events in the history of the United States. So I will now start introducing the folks that are going to share their personal reflections. But personally, Jim, thank you for your service, and thank you for letting us be a part of your lives, and by recognizing the importance of our military and our veterans here in the community with the dedication of these signs and the naming of the bridge, which is right behind us here. Now I'd like to introduce Colorado House Representative Dan Nordberg.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Commissioner Clark, for that introduction. It is such an honor to be with you today, to finally see this dedication come to fruition. This has been a long time coming. Like anything in government, and there's certainly no exception to this bridge, this wasn't always the easiest project, but we got it done. So today is a day to celebrate. Fortunately, we did have a lot of help along the way, so I would be remiss if I did not thank some of our key partners who are joining us this morning. First and foremost, the Colorado Department of Transportation, Dave Watt, resident engineer. Thank you, Dave, for your leadership on this project, as well as for the materials and logistics for today's event. Truly appreciate your partnership on this effort. Would also very much like to thank Kramer Construction, Work Zone Traffic Control, and Roadside Supplies, who in a unsolicited joint effort have covered the costs of the sign, the materials, the installation, pretty much everything. Thank you so much for your dedication to our community and for your generosity. It is truly appreciated and not taken for granted. So please give them a round of applause. I would also like to thank my co-sponsors on this resolution, Senator Merrifield, Representative Exum, and Senator Gardner. Being on the other side of the aisle, it's not often that I get a chance to thank Representative Exum and Senator Merrifield, so I'm going to relish in this opportunity. So thank you, gentlemen. Now for the reason that we're here today, to honor Jim Downing. And to do that, you have to understand the history of this incredible man, much of which begins on that day of infamy in 1941. On that fateful morning, Jim was at his home when he began hearing explosions in the distance. Minutes later, a shell exploded in his backyard, and he immediately knew something was terribly, terribly wrong. Jim made the hectic drive to the harbor, and as he was en route, a plane swooped down behind him and opened fire. He saw the rising sun on its wing and immediately knew they were under attack. Upon arriving at Pearl Harbor, he encountered thick black smoke and no clear way to get to his ship, the USS West Virginia. Eventually he found a path, albeit a very clever one. He jumped onto the adjoining USS Tennessee and slid down its gun barrel and landed on the deck of the USS West Virginia. Now friends, I would like to show you, there's a replica over there, I believe, of the USS West Virginia. Please look at the gun barrel and understand what Jim did. It is nothing short of incredible. As soon as he landed on the USS West Virginia, he grabbed a hose to put out fires that otherwise would have made their way to the ship's munitions locker. His efforts and actions prevented additional catastrophic explosions and unquestionably saved countless additional lives. Jim's heroics didn't end there. He tended to his injured shipmates and to those that were mortally wounded. He went around and memorized the names on their dog tags to ensure that their loved ones would know what happened that day. He took it upon himself to personally write each and every one of those families. In total, Jim's service in the Navy and his career in the military spanned 24 years. However, his dedication to service did not cease after his career in the military. Rather, the same honorable character he displayed in the military during the events of Pearl Harbor are still evident today through his everyday actions now. After leaving the Navy, Jim dedicated his life to his faith, pursuing the ministry and demonstrating himself as a man of God to all those around him. He also made it his mission to continue the memory of Pearl Harbor, teaching multiple generations about the events that took place on that day, and ensuring that the legacy of the 2,403 Americans lost would never be forgotten. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the bridge we're renaming today, the Cimarron Bridge, it more or less serves as the gateway to our city. It is the heart of Colorado Springs. And that's why it's so fitting that it be renamed after a man that so well exemplifies the values of our city. Jim's faith in God, love of country, and commitment to serving others is an example to all of us and embodies why his is truly the greatest generation. Jim, it is an honor to call you my friend. Thank you for your service to our country, and I'm so glad we could honor you in this very, very small way. Thank you, sir.
And now it's my honor to introduce Colorado Representative Tony Exum.
Good morning, and thank you, Commissioner Clark, and thank you, Representative Dan Nordborg, for allowing me to join you in honoring Big Jim today. Along with some of the things that add on to some of the things that Representative Nordborg shared with you, Big Jim served in World War II, the Korean War, and Vietnam War, and he was also a witness to the hydrogen test bomb. You know, he mentioned about the men that he tended to in that act of bravery and his life of faith, and I just want to talk about that just for a few minutes and just say that it takes a man of faith to do the things that Big Jim did during that time, and then to continue that and pass it on to other generations. So I would just simply say that it's a privilege and an honor to to honor such a man of great courage, faith, and service to his fellow man and country. So Big Jim, thank you. God bless you.
And now we'll hear a few words from Colorado State Senator Michael Merrifield.
Thanks, Sally. Thank you, Dan. Yes, it's nice that we have an opportunity to work together in a positive way, and actually more of that happens than you're probably aware of. One of the few really cool things that happens when you're an elected official is you get to hang out with some really, really awesome people that are really humbling to those of us who have a tendency to get maybe a little swollen head, more so than we should. And people like Jim really are incredible in reminding us of what we have done and what we can do as a country. The example that Jim has set is awesome, and I think it's very fitting that we have this tremendous structure that solves a problem, that moves people from one place to the other, that's really indicative and explains to us the kind of stubbornness and courage that Jim had and that his generation has had, and we really are thankful for that. So Jim, I ride my bike through this area at least once a week. So every time I cross underneath on my bike, and every time I drive over with my truck on the way to one of Colorado's beautiful areas, you will be in my thoughts. Thank you so much for what you've done for us. We really appreciate it. Thank you. I'm going to read this tonight.
Thank you, Senator Merrifield. And now it's my privilege to introduce El Paso County Commissioner for District 3, Stan Vanderwerf.
Thank you, Sally. Good morning, everyone. I'm Stan Vanderwerf, County Commissioner for District 3, and we are in District 3 right now, which includes this great project that we see behind me today. You know, we all need effective transportation in our communities, and we are always grateful to those who have protected our country from threats, both foreign and domestic. What a great day to acknowledge both of these, the need for a great infrastructure so our economy can be efficient, and to recognize the honor of those to recognize and honor those heroes who have protected us from tyranny. Mr. Jim Downing, we are honored to stand before you today and recognize your accomplishments and your service to the country. Our naming ceremony today completes a long cycle of efforts by our legislators, including Representatives Dan Norberg and Tony Exum, and Senators Bob Gardner and Mike Merrifield, and the efforts of our community to show our respect and gratefulness to you. But as we know, while we are honoring Mr. Downing this morning, we also honor every service member from every decade in our nation's 241 years. Whether they fought in a war or not, whether they served a full career or not, because they did their job with a faith in our country and our values, we can stand here today in peace and enjoy our lives with our families. Mr. Downing, you're an excellent ambassador and representative of those who have served, and today we honor you and all of those who have served by placing your name upon this bridge, so that when we use this bridge, we may be continually reminded of the sacrifices that have been made, so that the rest of us may live our lives and raise our families in peace and harmony. Thank you again, sir. May God bless you. May God bless every service member and our great community, and may God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Commissioner. And now it's my great privilege to introduce John Downing, who is Jim Downing's son. Would you please come and say a few words?
Good morning. I'm John Downing, as Sally said. I've been asked to share a few words of gratitude from the Downing family for the honor bestowed on our father for his heroic service to our country as a member of the United States Navy and also for his life of service to the men and women of the armed forces through his Christian ministry. Our family is not only my dad's 5 sons and 2 daughters, their spouses, 9 grandchildren, 9 great-grandchildren with 1 on the way. That represents the immediate family. Also, in the lineage of my father's family, there are several citizen soldiers. My uncles, my dad's brothers, fought in both Europe and the South Pacific. And we have records that show that his grandfathers fought in the Civil War, 1 on each side. Records also show that my dad's ancestors included frontiersmen in Kentucky and even the Revolutionary War. To our knowledge, my dad is the only family member to have a bridge named in his honor. Although an earlier ancestor formed a ferry business crossing the Mississippi, only to find that that was the coldest year yet on record, and people chose to simply walk across the ice. I am personally reminded of the honor as thousands of commuters who make their way back and forth across the bridge. I myself live in northern Colorado Springs and am employed at the Vanguard School, which is south. So for this great honor, our family thanks to our state legislatures, the Honorable Tony Exum, Dan Norberg, for sponsoring the naming resolution, and to the member and former member of the El Paso County Commission, Stan Vanderwerf and Sally Clark, who have honored us with their presence in this ceremony, and also for our city council persons that are here and from the commissioner from Teller County. Thank you. We also want to extend our thanks to the men and women of CDOT, Kramer Construction and the Work Zone, and the Roadside Supplies who built the structures and donated the sign. For this honor, our family thanks you. Thank you.
And now comes the time that we've all been waiting for. We want to hear some words from our guest of honor, Jim Downey.
Great to be with you this morning. This is my assistant, Brett Clark, who helps me in all that I do. So by holding the mic, I can wave my arms if I feel like it. One of the reasons I'm here this morning is because I'm a veteran. There are 23 million of us veterans. Of that number, 8,000 are somewhat disabled. Another 3.5 million suffer from post-traumatic distress syndrome. 39,000 are homeless, and an average of 22 commit suicide every day. Well, I can never think of the veterans without shedding a tear for the 83,000 missing in action. Their families, survivors, because those 83,000 are still unidentified. And also, so thankful for the 1.3 million active duty personnel, and for the 800,000 reservists ready to be close to be called up. So we salute to all of you. all the 23 million deserve to be recognized and decorated. And I feel that if the Department of Defense ever decides to honor everybody that deserves it, they'll have to buy an ore mine in Utah to hold the metals and a few cotton fields in Texas to get the thread for the ribbons, and a factory in New York, a dye factory to dye the ribbons. Everybody is a hero in my estimation. So I accept this honor on behalf of those veterans, and everyone of them deserves to have their name on the bridge. I just represent them. I also feel strongly a ton of gratitude to the 971,000 people who've given their lives for this nation from the Revolutionary War to today, nearly a million. Now, I'm not familiar with bridge things, so I went online to see what I could learn about bridges. And the definition says that it's a structure spanning two physical obstacles without closing the way underneath. I think that's a pretty good definition of a bridge. And that the bridge will keep 110,000 vehicles a day that cross it. Frustration at not having to stop at stop signs. And I don't know what the number is going to be underneath, but I'm sure it's almost equal to that. In 1915, my family of 6, father, mother, and 3 brothers and sisters, made a trip from North Missouri to Florida in our Model T Ford. It took 1.5 weeks. There were no marked highways, so my father got an atlas of each state that had the counties, the boundaries of counties, and there was a star for each county seat. So we drew a line through the county seats, and we would stop and ask the directions for the next. And they were not always easy to follow. We got lost many times. And I think we heeded the advice of the Yogi Berra: when you come to fork in the road, take it. And so we often took the wrong one. There were blue marks in the atlas to show the rivers and the streams. But what it didn't show is that most of them did not have bridges. So we spent a lot of time crossing these bodies of water in a ferry boat pulled by a horse up on the bank. Had a horse on each side of the cable to the ferry, and would take it each way. If there was a line of cars, it took quite a while till they all got across. But that was a great journey. I wasn't old enough to remember everything, but I remember part of it. And it reminded me that today in Colorado, Brett has found out that we were like that at one time, and now there are 8,612 bridges in Colorado. 8,612. Thank you, Brett, for digging that out. So I appreciate bridges probably more than all of you. That's my experience on that trip. But the word bridge has a wider meaning. We need more bridges between nations. I'm often asked if I've forgiven the Japanese and the Germans for stealing 4 years out of my life. I don't have any problem with the Japanese people or the German people because it's natural for people of all nations and cultures to love each other. That's the natural thing to do, love each other. I have a friend who spent 20 years in China. He told me that the chief kind of plaything on the schoolyards of China are cowboys and Indians. And during the height of the Cold War, the hottest item on the Russian black market was American jeans. I was traveling in China a few years ago with an acquaintance of mine. We stopped our minivan to a restaurant. Across the open space was an elementary school. Somebody in the restaurant told the bandmaster that there were 2 Americans over there. He motioned her to come over. The minute our feet touched the schoolyard, the band struck up the Star Spangled Banner. Loud, clear, and without a note. That was the highlight of my trip to China. During my school years, I had a good relationship with the principal. We had lots of long talks. One day he asked me, he said, do you know what causes war? I did not. He said, I could tell you in one word, greed. Greed for power over people. Greed for territory, often that belongs to somebody else. I think that's true. Today, North Korea wants to take over South Korea. They cannot do it as long as we have our forces in South Korea. So they're trying to bully us to pull out of South Korea so they can fulfill their greedy desires. I cannot prophesy what's going to happen openly, but I have my own ideas of what's going to happen. If this measure is not going to be successful, that South Korea is our allies. It's foreign to attack. But then, as has been mentioned by the speakers, that I appreciate all of you and thank you for your work. And I wonder sometimes, Representative Norberg, if maybe you've set a record to get the House and the Senate to be unanimous in the resolution that passed. So thank you for that accomplishment. But the greatest bridge in history, in the universe, in all history, is the bridge that God provided in His Son, who bridges the gulf between earth and heaven. So, thanks for the honor that I accept in behalf of the other veterans that we have protecting our country and the agitated people. Thank you.
Now we have a special moment. I'd like to call John Downing and Don Downing to remove the drape off of the forklift and the what's in front of us to see the new signs. I want to remind folks that the signs are going to be installed right after the ceremony today. So be on the lookout for that when you're on I-25 on both the east and the west sides. And also there will be an official bridge ribbon cutting on Thursday, October 26th at 1 p.m. right here. There's flyers on the table. So let's have the unveiling. Thank you all for coming today. Have a beautiful day.